Hello everyone and welcome to our first ever podcast on this channel, on whatever channel or platform you're watching it. Everything football Premier League related. I say everything, that's completely impossible to do. But I will introduce you to my co-host, but welcome to this channel, which is now going to be called The Game's Gone, because guess what? The game's gone. Lyle, welcome to the podcast. Well, I say welcome as if it's my podcast. It's equally both of ours. That is in writing. How you feeling about the new season? We're ready to predict 20-1. We don't know each other's predictions. We're obviously going to be wrong. How you feeling?
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to this season. I mean, it can't be a hell of a lot worse for me, as I support Manchester United, and Cam is a Chelsea fan, so he's very optimistic for this season. And you'll see later on where we...
Champions of the world.
But without further ado, let's get into the predictions. So, 20th for me, I've gone with Burnley. Now, I didn't really know who to put bottom, because there's a trend over the last couple of seasons, and it isn't really a trend anymore. The newly promoted teams always seem to go down. And not to spoil my other two, I don't think this season will be too far off that. I think we're sort of getting into a pattern where the newly promoted teams, they just are not good enough to really stick with the Premier League side. Although Burnley have spent quite a bit of money, it's a difficult one, but Burnley for me are 20th.
You called it how did you describe it? You said it was a trend. I think it's more like the apocalypse. Is it impossible for sides to come up to the Premier League? It's an interesting topic. We can't get into it today because we're predicted, unsurprisingly, probably the most unsurprising, equal prediction that we both got at 20th. I've got Burnley. I don't mind their signings. I like the way they played last year, but it's eerily similar. Not the way they play, but it's an eerily similar sort of situation to what it was when they come up with Vincent Kompany. It didn't really work out. Obviously, the play style's a little bit different. I think Scott Parker's a little bit more of a defensive coach, which I think which will suit surviving in the Premier League better. But is that going to be enough? I don't know. I just think if you look at the three promoted teams, I think Burnley are the weakest, and there's no way all three are going to survive. Probably shouldn't have said that. For me, Burnley are bottom.
Okay, 19th. Like I said in my last one, I've gone with Sunderland. I think Sunderland. What?
I'm not happy with that, lad. I'm furious. It's totally understandable, to be fair.
I think they have gone balls to the walls, though. If I said Burnley have made quite a lot of signings, Sunderland have gone... they remind me of how Nottingham Forest did. When they got promoted, went balls to the walls, spent however much money they did, and finished 17th, I believe. So they only just survived. It's a hell of a lot of players to try and knit into a squad in a new league. You haven't been in the league for a hell of a long time. I just can see it going the negative way, unfortunately.
Yeah, it's a gamble, isn't it? You say balls to the wall, but at the end of the day, they've got to put balls in the back of the net. And I mean, now just looks like they're going to sign the Chelsea striker, Guehi or Guehi, or however he says his name. But he's unproven at this level. You know, the big things are the promoted sides, and I think this is the problem with all three of them. None of them really have a striker that you're convinced is going to get 10, 15 goals, and that's crucial when you want to survive. So I can get why you put Sunderland there. They have risked it, but I really like some of their signings. I haven't got them there. In 19th position, rather controversially, I've got Wolves.
Okay.
Which may surprise people. I think that the manager last year, Carmen Pereira, I think he'd done a fantastic job, but they've lost Cunha. They've lost Ait-Nouri to Man City. I think they were two crucial players for them. They have made a couple of signings. They've got that John Aries from the Brazilian club who played well in the Club World Cup. But I don't know. I look at our Wolves side and I think they struggled last year until the new manager came in. They were in big trouble up to that point. If they have a difficult start, I think it might be difficult for them to pull away. I don't know what their finances are. I don't think they're massively in a healthy position in regards to buy-in. So I think they could be one of those sides that might be the one to buck the trend this year. So that's why I got Wolves at 19th.
And to finish, as I called it, my trend, as it were, 18th, I've gone with Leeds. I think, for me, out of all of them, I think Leeds have the best chance. I think I don't watch that much Championship, but I saw a few Leeds games here and there last season, and I really liked the way that they played, and they just score goals for fun. Where I think that will mess them up is there aren't many teams in the Premier League that have, they're not going to come in and have the caliber just to score goals for fun, because you can play anybody, and just I think the caliber of the Premier League is just going up so much, and the promoted teams just, as shown in previous years, just cannot keep up. So for me, you could say I've copped out, and I've gone with the 3 that have been promoted are going to be relegated, but I've got to play it safe at some point, because after this, my predictions get mental.
No, I don't think it's a cop-out. I think it makes sense. You'd be a brave man to bet against it. And that's where I come in, because I think the trend's got to stop. It's got to stop, surely. So in 18th position, I've gone for, led by Tom Andrews, as I'm calling him, because I didn't realise his name was Keith. I'm going for Brentford. I think they're going to have a big fall off this year. Obviously, they've lost key players. They've lost their captain. They've lost their manager. They've still got Wisa, however you say his name. I'm not very good with pronunciations, as you'll fucking tell. I can't even pronounce my own name, and it's the most simple name in the world. I just worry for them. And I think, again, a bit like with Wolves, if they start the season poorly, they might have to sack the manager. I just think it's a real big risk. I could be completely wrong. Brentford are a great side. They've been well established in the Premier League. But to lose your manager, your club captain, your star player, amongst other things that they've lost, and other players they've lost, I worry about them. And I think they're going to be 18th, which is remarkable that I've actually managed to predict that 2 of the promoted sides are going to survive. So I think, Lyle, your prediction at this point is looking a lot more safe than mine.
Well, there's no point of me really stopping, because Brentford for me are 17th. I think they are, out of everyone, I've seconded everything that you said. How many teams do you know had a decent solid season last season, but you lose your manager, your best player, and you could potentially lose your striker in the same window? That would mess any club up. You're pretty much rebuilding effectively, because your main spine of your whole entire team is gone.
Obviously, last year all 3 promoted sides obviously got relegated, but the gap between was pretty big. Do you think it's going to be as big this year, or do you think it will be closer?
No. It'll be much closer, because there are teams that were sort of bobbing in, and maybe they weren't bobbing in and around that area, but they've had players that have been poached by other clubs, or managers leave, etc. So I think it will be closer. And if there was a season like you've done to predict one or 2 of the newly promoted sides staying up, it's definitely this one.
Well, I'm glad, because the next team coming up are one of the promoted sides, and it is Leeds United. I've gone for 17th. I don't dislike Leeds. I'm concerned about Leeds, and maybe I'm concerned about Leeds because of Daniel Farke's Norwich Premier League season, where Norwich played some fantastic football. They came up, I think they were championship winners under Daniel Farke. I'm not sure they won the league. And then they come to the Premier League, and they were, to be honest with you, awful. There was no real B plan. I think Farke's a fantastic manager. He's proven it in the Championship. He's proven it being able to get teams promoted to the Premier League. I think the big thing for him this year is proving he can keep a team in the league. Leeds are backing him to an extent in the market. I still think they need a goal scorer, but I think if they can get a goal scorer in, someone who's going to bag them 10, 15 goals a season, a bit like what Patrick Bamford used to do for them back when they were in the Premier League before, then I think they've got a chance of surviving. It's not necessarily a big one, but I'm going to back them. Screw it. Leeds 17th.
Okay, 16th. A similar vein to Brentford, I've gone Wolves. Losing Cunha and Ait-Nouri, which for me are their 2 best players. I think Ait-Nouri will do absolutely fantastically at Manchester City, but I think he suits their style amazingly. But they're always, they worried me, or didn't worry me, but they were one of the ones last season that I thought they could seriously. If one of the newly promoteds are going to survive, Wolves will be in that, and they'll be relegated. So I think it's only a matter of time before they do. And if, like you've done, Leeds and Sunderland have a decent season, I think Wolves and Brentford are on the chop and block 100%.
Yeah, I think Wolves is a case of a sort of very slow decline over the last few years.
Yeah.
That you perhaps haven't noticed necessarily until you think about it a bit more deeply when you do predictions like this, but they do feel like they're moving backwards. Brentford, it feels like if it goes wrong this season, it's because of the upheaval, whereas with Wolves, it feels like the writing's kind of been on the wall for the last couple of seasons. They've got closer and closer to that relegation zone. Last year, obviously, they probably got fortunate in the fact that the three promoted teams, the three teams that got relegated, were just so much worse than everybody else.
Mm-hmm.
And don't get me wrong, Wolves had a great second half to the season, but like we said, we think the promoted teams are better this year. You've got to be careful if you're Wolves. Obviously, I've got them 19th. You've got them there or thereabouts. You've got to be careful that they don't get dragged in. I think they're on the downward trajectory, really. In 16th, interestingly for me, I've gone with a team that actually had a decent season last season. I just think they're going to drop off this year. I don't think they've done barely any business. They've lost a couple of key players, and for me, it's Fulham. I really like Marco Silva. I think he's a great manager, but it would not surprise me if midway through the season, it seems like, again, every season, it seems like there's rumours that Marco Silva's going to go on to a different club, a bigger club, dare I say it. It hasn't happened yet. I don't think they're going to get relegated, but I think they're one of those teams that could be a bit like Wolves last year, where you're like, hang on a minute, they need to go on a run. They go on a run, and they end up finishing 16th. But I think it's going to be a largely disappointing season for Fulham after what was a mixed bag last year.
Do you think,
but relatively decent?
If Silva leaves, that instantly puts Fulham into the Brentford, Wolves, into that relegation scrap.
They do. Silva leaves, they move into the bronze category, and they're in big trouble.
15th is where we could start to see some discrepancies, but I've gone with West Ham. I think West Ham are seriously going to struggle this season. I think I don't really rate Graham Potter all that much as a manager, and they've lost Mohamed Kudus, and I liked him. He's gone to Spurs, and I don't know, who's going to get the goals for them? Really, there's a hell of a lot of pressure on Bowen. You get some injuries to a couple of key players. They've signed Todibo, and I do like Todibo, centre-half. A hell of a lot of the big clubs were gunning for Todibo, so maybe he'll strengthen them up a little bit at the back, but I think they will struggle this season.
The funny thing with West Ham is, because I've got them at 15th as well, is they're a really difficult team to predict.
Yeah.
Some summers they have what looks like on paper brilliant summers, sign some fantastic players, and you look and you think they'll be great, and they all end up not being particularly good, and they have a terrible season. I mean, I've predicted West Ham in the past to finish sort of 7th, 8th, and they've nearly got relegated. So the fact that I'm predicting them low this year probably means they're going to have a very good season. They'll probably do a Nottingham Forest this year. They have brought Callum Wilson in, which I like, but obviously injury prone. If he stays fit for even 20-22 games in the season, I think he gets some goals. I like Graham Potter. I don't think he's a bad manager. I think he was unlucky at Chelsea, albeit wrong place, wrong time, wrong everything, a bit early for him. But I do like him as a manager. It wouldn't have surprised me if he'd got the England job. I think he probably would have been England manager had it not been for Thomas Tuchel and what went on with him in the situation. For me, West Ham are an interesting one this year. They always are interesting because you never quite know what you're going to get from them. I didn't like how they didn't really turn it around much under Potter last year. I'm not worried about them, but I don't think it's going to be a particularly exciting season for them. I think this is a sort of solidify season and then go next year to sort of push up that table.
Right, 14th I've gone with Fulham. Once again, I think it's a difficult one because it's in the realms of your West Hams and your Fulhams where you don't really know where to put them. Because like you said, it all hinges on if they actually bother to do anything in the window, because we're recording this and they still have time, and if they keep their manager, that could kick their season off, get some exciting new players in. But for now, all I've got to go off of is there's talk around the manager leaving and they haven't done anything. So it's a sort of a 14th is a steady ground that I could see them finishing.
I think the other problem with, and this is what makes these predictions so hard, is when you actually look at the final Premier League tables over the past how many years, and you look at these sort of positions that we're talking about here, the amount of points that we're talking about that can be from, say, 15th to 11th, sometimes it can be separated by 4 points. That's a win and a draw. That's a VAR decision going wrong. So it's very tough to predict. It's very tough to predict, but I think Fulham, the West Hams of the world, they are kind of in that realm of we don't really know where they're going to be, but we kind of know they're going to be somewhere in the middle. We don't think they're going to to get relegated, but we don't really think they're going to have a great season. In 14th, team who had a very good season last season or dropped off at the end. I think they're going to continue to drop off. They've lost some key players. I like the manager, but I think he's got an uphill task, and that's Bournemouth at 14th for me. It's not even... Yes, they've lost players and this and that. I think they overachieved last year massively, and I think to do that 2 years in a row. I mean, if you remember when Sheffield United had that incredible season where they finished, I think it was 8th, and then they dropped off. I even think back to Swansea and West Brom one season. This is probably 10, 15 years ago when they finished 8th and 9th or something of that description, and then they dropped off the next season. I think it's difficult for these clubs because your best players get poached. You bring in new players, but they take time to settle, and if you have a bad start to the season, you can end up just languishing in mid-table, and even if you do go on a good run at the end of the season, at that point, you're already so far adrift to be able to really make any sort of inroads in regards to the table.
I do rate that, because I wasn't ballsy enough to drop them that far. I have dropped them, but not as far as down to 14th, because like you say, they've lost 2 very key players to the back line of their entire squad, and you would have to be a certain kind of team for that not to rock your boat and to sort of derail your season to a certain extent.
And they've lost a goalkeeper as well, Kepa as well, who was very good for them last year. They've lost a massive spine there. That's not to say that they can't replace the spine. And again, I'm not for 1 second saying I think they're going to be in any relegation trouble, but I think they're going to drop off, and I think they'll drop off a little bit more than people perhaps expect. But I still don't think 14th is, you look at Bournemouth, I think they've got the smallest stadium in the Premier League. It's not a bad season for Bournemouth at all, 14th in the Premier League.
No.
It's a good season for them.
If Man United finished 14th, we've done better than what we did last season, so you can't really...
You couldn't really do worse, really, could you, Lyle? I mean, the only thing that could have been worse was if you lost the cup final to Tottenham and made them win a trophy when they can't ever...
I don't know. I must have missed that one. I don't really remember that, to be honest. No,
I actually watched the game, but I have no recollection of the game because it was so crap that I literally can't remember it. I remember the start of the game, and I remember being 6 pints in by the final whistle. That's about all I saw.
That's a good job.
Congratulations to Tottenham. No one cares, but congratulations to them.
Next up, in 13th, I've gone with Everton. I think Everton will actually have a steady season. They always seem to pull out steady seasons. And for an Everton finishing 13th, that isn't that bad at all. They've finally gotten rid of Dominic Calvert-Lewin, and I don't want to speak that man's name because he's been linked with Manchester United. And
I'd love to sign him. I think he'd be fantastic for you.
Don't even start. But they've gotten he's a youngster from Villarreal, I believe. If I remember correctly, he did about 10 goals last season. So, he's the type of person that could come in and absolutely rip the Premier League up. I can't personally see it, but it's possible. And for a long time, you've had, you have your Betos, and your Undies, but they're not really finding the net consistently game after game after game. And maybe this new lad will come in and just hit the ground running. But for me, I always think Everton are going to be there. Like you say, you've got sort of a 5-slot gap in the league where any of these teams could really be. Yeah.
The way I describe it is, in the morning when you wake up and you've got a bit of a funny stomach and you go to the toilet, and you just never know quite what the consistency is going to be like, but it's going to be there or thereabouts depending on what you ate the day before. And I think 100%. You look at Everton, you look at Bournemouth, it's like that. I know it's not going to be a solid one, but it's not going to be diarrhea type stuff. Do you know what I mean? I think it's not a bad prediction having Everton there. Going on to 13th, unlucky for some, hopefully lucky for me, because it's probably one of my most ballsy predictions, and I haven't even got any balls. And it's Sunderland. I really, really am committing to them this year. I don't care what anyone says. I don't actually... Controversially, as a Chelsea fan, I've had some bad memories with Sunderland because they always seem to beat us. Some of our worst defeats ever have come against Sunderland. But I think the Premier League isn't the Premier League without Sunderland versus Newcastle. And I don't think the Premier League's the Premier League without Sunderland. I really like their business. one thing that people have made a point of, they massively bought a hell of a lot of players that will be going to AFCON in January, which could cause them a problem.
Oh, wow.
But, getting Xhaka, I mean, that has got to be one of the craziest transfers. I mean, I know he wasn't as good for Bayer Leverkusen last year as he was in the Invincible year, but that's an incredible coup. He wanted Sunderland over everyone else. I mean, this is incredible. I mean, I say over everyone else. I'm sure if Real Madrid or Barcelona came knocking. But I like their signings. They bought Diarra from Strasbourg, however you say it. I should know it. I own them. There's a lot of signings they've made. They've made some permanent ones from loans. I like the look of the Sunderland side. I think there's that spirit, that we had with Luton, and that we kind of got a little bit with Ipswich last year. Mm-hmm. But I think the quality of this Sunderland side with their signings, it's a big risk. Like you said, they've gone balls to the wall. If those players flop, they're in trouble. But they've gone for it. I just hope that they go for it and they don't leave themselves into positions that Leicester leave themselves in, with financial ramifications that they have to rebuild. Even Sheffield United have struggled since they got relegated. I hope that they're doing a calculated risk here, but you've got to give them credit. They're going for it. I don't think many people, well, certainly last year, when no one expected them to get promoted, they come through the playoffs. I really think of all the promoted sides, I think they are the ones that are going to be the best. And I think two are going to survive, and I've got Sunderland finishing 13th. They're going to be wrong. I'm not saying they're going to be, 15 points away from the relegation zone, but I'll give a little shout out here. I think they'll be pretty safe, almost mathematically, by April the 1st.
Blimey. So, well, even if, because they've signed loads of players, even if they don't finish for 13th and they survive by the skin of their teeth, you've seen how it's gone on to affect Forest. They've went on and had an absolutely fantastic season last year. So it has been done before and it is possible. So I think that's a very good prediction. You got to be bold. Sometimes you just get hunches and you got to go with it. It
is. It's a feeling. It's probably wrong. Last feeling I got was that Dolly Partner died, and I woke up and she hadn't, which was great. So obviously this time I hope I'm right, not with Dolly Parton but with Sunderland. But yeah, so sometimes hunches are right, sometimes they're not. But I think you've always got to go with a hunch, unless obviously it's in the case of Dolly Parton's death or whatever, because that's sort of traumatic.
12th place. I'll be seconding a lot of what Cam said here, but I've gone with Bournemouth losing Kurikes and Huijenshan go to Real Madrid.
That's a good. I wouldn't even have attempted it. I'd have gone, and sort of that Spanish centre back they sold to Real Madrid. But no, fair play. You've gone for it.
And
fucked it up, but you've gone for it.
Huijsen, something like that. But anyway, for me, the money that they've got back.
With a bit of duck.
Pardon?
Beautiful with a bit of duck, Huijsen sauce. Lovely.
Christ. For me, I don't think they've bought players in those positions, but for me, they're obviously not going to be. I don't think they've replaced them that well, effectively. So I'll be seconding everything that Cam says, and that's why I think. What did we say? They finished 9th, did they, last season? And I've put them 12th.
Yeah, I think they did drop off, because at one point it looked like they could even sneak into Europa League places. They did drop off at the end of the season. Yeah. They sort of ran out of steam a little bit, and that concerns me. I think that's why probably both of us have dropped them off. They dropped off last year. They've lost some key players. They are replacing them, and like we say, there's still a long way to go in the transfer window. So they could pull a mad one. I mean, look at Xhaka going to Sunderland. Something of that ilk.
Yeah.
But at this stage, I think your drop off is probably a more logical drop off. I've probably gone a little bit too hard, but I just had to put Sunderland at 13th. I just felt it in my ball bag.
12. We're going to leave this unedited. 12.
Yeah, swiftly moving on to 12th. I've got Crystal Palace. If you've ever been to Crystal Palace Park in London, you might know the dinosaurs. They've got little dinosaurs dotted about. Beautiful park, by the way. And I actually like Crystal Palace. I like the fans. I like the stadium, actually, just from a visual perspective, as in when you see it on the TV. Look, I think they're going to struggle this year in the sense of, again, like a lot of these teams that we're talking about at this stage, they have lost key players. Obviously, they've got the European football to contend with. But again, I don't think it will drop them off that badly. I think they'll enjoy the European road. I think it's disgraceful if they're not in the Europa League. I think that really is a disgrace with the whole but we'll have to wait and see. They've appealed it, but at the very least they'll be in the Conference League. And I tell you, if they're in the Conference League, they've got a good chance of going very far in it. I think what Palace have got to do is get the points on the board early on in the season, get themselves into a comfortable position. So if they do go deep in Europe, they're not got to worry about relegation zone or being anywhere near it. So they can just focus on that. But an incredibly successful season last year. Lots of great players. They always invest well. They've got a fantastic youth system at Crystal Palace. They always seem to generate and bring players through. If you think over the years now that they've done it, they'll be absolutely fine. The European season is going to be exciting. I think it'll be a fun season for Crystal Palace, and it wouldn't surprise me if they went on another cup run. I'm not saying they're going to win, an FA Cup or a League Cup, but it wouldn't surprise me if they're on a good cup run. They're a good cup side. It's a very difficult ground to play in, and for me, I've got them 12.
Well, moving straight on in 11th, I've got Palace. So
Yeah.
I really like Glasner. I think he's a very, very, very good manager. And like you said, with them now being FA Cup winners and whatever Europe they get, like you said, the conference might help them a bit more. The Europa League might hinder them because they're just going to be... It's a harder competition, obviously. But do they have the squad to splay out for that? Because they're obviously not used to playing in Europe. So I could see Palace being a difficult one. And if they go far in a European competition, they could effectively sack the league off. I don't know. I've seen teams do that before, and that could be something that they, because when else are Palace going to have the chance, not to belittle them, when else are Palace going to have the chance to potentially win a European trophy?
Well, no, and I think it's even as Chelsea and Man United fans, it sounds ridiculous us saying this to Crystal Palace. If there's Crystal Palace fans listening, they'll probably think, "Oh, fuck off," but which is fair enough. But you're right, there was a period. I mean, we've got back in the Champions League now, but there are periods, and you as United fans, you probably sit there and think, when are we next going to win the league? I mean, who would have said when Alex Ferguson retired, and I'm not trying to make you feel bad, Lyle, or make you feel sad, but that was going to be the last Premier League that you guys had won? I mean, it's crazy. No one would have predicted that you wouldn't win a Premier League in now coming up to 15 odd years. So you're absolutely right.
Yeah.
They've got to enjoy it. The fans will, the players will. But again, I think the good thing about Palace is they have got a good youth system, so they can bring in some young players. They can give that experience. No one's expecting anything from Palace this year other than a solid season and a decent little European run. Do you know what I mean? There's not a lot of pressure on them. They've done so well last year. Let's see what they can do. I'm looking forward to watching Palace this year. I think they'll be a good side. If they keep Eze, then I think they're going to be absolutely fine. If Eze leaves, again, it's one of those where find a replacement. But Palace deal with Elise go. They always seem to be able to deal with players leaving.
Well, they've got Sarr as well, and I think Sarr is, in some games, Sarr is just as important as Eze. Eze is a bloody top talent and scored many goals in the FA Cup last year that helped them progress. But Sarr sort of plods along, sort of quietly, and he was pivotal in that FA Cup final. He was absolutely fantastic. So, like you said, if they can keep hold of those two...
Point to pick up on what you just said there, about, we've both done it, and I think we all do it as football fans, where, you sell one of your top players and we go, who have they signed to replace them?
Yeah.
But sometimes I think about my own club, and the best replacements have sometimes been within, or a player that then steps up, who was already at the club, like a Sarr, and takes that main role guy on. I think we always look at transfers, but actually maybe there's somebody in the squad, maybe there's someone coming through, maybe there's somebody who will get more minutes, or somebody who can now, like a Sarr, who can become the MVP. So I think sometimes as football fans we look too much in the kind of FIFA career mode kind of mindset of transfers,
definitely.
and transfers are everything, when in actual fact sometimes you look within. I mean, I look at like Victor Moses and Alonso, sorry to make it about Chelsea, but when Conte came in and he turned them in to absolutely world-class wing-backs.
Yep.
We didn't spend 60-70 million on top-quality wing-backs. He turned them in, and good managers, which Palace have, in both of our opinions, there's nothing to... That's what a good manager's able to do. It's not just about money and having someone bought. It's about developing the players you've got and giving a platform for another player to take over and become that new person. Sometimes when the best player leaves a team, it can actually open them up and they can become better.
Well, sometimes it's easier as well. If you've got a player who's already in the ranks, it's easier because he knows the lads, He's been around the atmosphere. It's easier for him to sort of step up because he's already in a comfortable environment. If you're coming from buttfuck nowhere into this squad, there's a hell of a lot of pressure on your shoulders because you know who you're replacing, as it were.
Yeah, absolutely. And not to mention the fact that if there's a transfer, new place, the family's settling into a new home. I think we always forget that footballers are humans. They've got families. Some of them have got kids. When they do these transfers and they move abroad or they move from one part of the country to the other, new school for their kids, wives, there's more to things than we think about in football.
100%.
And we can't think about everything, it's impossible. But yeah, when someone's in the club, integrated, there's no transition period. So yeah, I think that's Palace will be interesting this season. I'm looking forward to watching them. 11th for me, Steady Eddie, David Moyes, new stadium for Everton this season. It's a solidified season, I think, for them. At one point last year, they looked in big trouble, as they seemingly have looked for the past, what feels like 10 million years. But they did survive, which was crucial last year. I mean, if they'd have got relegated and been playing in a brand new stadium in the Championship, it would have just been horrific for them in every sense of the word, from a financial perspective, sponsorship. It would have been a catastrophic embarrassment for the club. I think David Moyes is a really, really good manager. I think you know exactly what you get. And I would say, and we are thinking about doing a ranking video on Premier League managers, ranking Premier League managers from 20 to number 1. And I think where I would put David Moyes is about where I put Everton, mid-table, solid. You know what you're getting. Like you said, they made some great signings. Bazza's come in, as I'm going to call him.
Bazza, get him in.
That's his name. But Bazza's coming in. But the thing with David Moyes is you don't necessarily need a 15, 20 goal striker in a David Moyes system. You need somebody who's going to hold the ball up and who's going to get you those tricky goals and there's going to be a nuisance. I like Everton's business. I like David Moyes. 11th for me, and I think that'll be a really good season in their new stadium. They've got some investment. I know that the new investment and stuff's coming in. Things, I don't like to say it, but things looking a little bit up for Everton. I'm not saying they're going to get back to that David Moyes days when they were sort of 5th and 6th and sniffing on the Champions League positions, but give them 5-6 years, it wouldn't surprise me if they're in and around that area.
Right, 10th for me, and now this is where it gets very interesting because it's all about hunches. It's your predictions at the end of the day. By the way, if you've got your predictions and you want to share them with us, wherever you're watching, listening, drop them in the comments and we would be very interested to look at them. But I've gone with Brighton in 10th place.
Wow.
Now, I think I do like Hertzler. They haven't signed anybody. And I think as how competitive the Premier League is, because it just seems to be ramping up and ramping up and ramping up. And I think you've constantly got to be improving your side and adding new additions in and trying to better what you did last season. Bearing in mind, Brighton, if I remember correctly, were only held out of any European spot because Crystal Palace won the FA Cup. Don't quote me on that. I could be wrong. But I think they'll have a steady season and a steady 10th. No one's like, are Brighton fans going to be pushing to get higher? Probably yes, but a 10th for me, I think, is a solid season.
I disagree with. Well, I don't necessarily disagree with you. I see what you're saying, but I think everyone says the same thing about Brighton every year. And I don't think they've necessarily lost any key players this year, unlike previous seasons. I like their signings. They're typical Brighton-y signings, and they always seem to work out. Brighton can buy a player for 2 million that no one's heard of, and he gets sold to Chelsea for 150 million 2 years later. And why do I think that all of a sudden that would stop? I think the manager had a very good season last season. There's more to show, but I'm surprised you've got them that low. I get it. I just wonder, because it's Brighton Pride this weekend, so I just wondered whether you're being homophobic to me, or just why you put Brighton so low. But no, for me, we'll wait to see where I've got Brighton. But 10th is a bit low for me, but it's your prediction, so I don't even know why I said that. 10th for me, Tottenham Hotspur. People are probably wondering when one of the big guns that nearly got relegated last season. I mean, they didn't, did they? Tottenham, Man United never really were any. I mean, they were positionally, but realistically, it was never looking likely. But for me, Tottenham 10th. Really like Thomas Frank. I think it's a great appointment. Is it harsh on Ange? No. Because I don't think one game changes an entire season. I mean, they were awful last year, Tottenham. Absolutely awful.
Well, United messed up, didn't they? when Ten Hag kept his job over the FA Cup, and I didn't think that was the right decision at the time, and it turned out it wasn't. So
it wasn't. Yeah. So I think we ain't going to get into Daniel Levy and wind all the Tottenham fans up, but I like some of their business. I think it's a shame they missed out on Gibbs White. I think he would have been a good signing. Obviously, Maddison actually got stretchered off today in a pre-season friendly. That's a big loss. Son's leaving. I think they'll be better than they were last season. I mean, it'd be hard for them to be worse, which is always a good place to start as a new manager. I think they'll have a solid season. I don't think they'll tear anything up. I think they'll have some good standout results. They'll probably beat Man City like they always seem to do. But I don't really think they'll do much else. They might have a sort of FA Cup run to the semi-final or something. But I think it's a solidified season for Tottenham. Get them back into the mid-table, in and around the European positions. Thomas Frank in his second season. I think if we're sat here next year and Thomas Frank is still in charge and Tottenham have finished 10th, I'm probably going to be predicting them to be fighting for Europe next year. But yeah, Tottenham 10th. I wouldn't even say that's bad for Tottenham. They're in the Champions League as well, which we can't forget about. So that's going to prove maybe challenging, but it may also benefit their season. We just don't know. But for me, 10th for Tottenham, I couldn't really put them higher. I couldn't really put them lower. It just feels that they're very tempting.
Well, it's happened a few times in the predictions, but 9th for me is Tottenham. They can't do any worse. I really like Thomas Frank, and they had the whole saga with the Morgan Gibbs White thing. I think if Morgan Gibbs White would have come through the door, and they've got Son leaving as well, captain of however long. So there are some changes, and obviously them being in Champions League as well. If they start off really well in the Champions League, it comes back to the Crystal Palace thing. Which one are you going to focus on?
But do you think Tottenham, and that's the same with Crystal Palace, I don't think it impacts them as much, because I don't think Crystal Palace are going to be at risk of getting relegated. I don't think Tottenham are going to be that close to the European places. So I think they are going to be in kind of purgatory. So if they do go on a big run, I don't think it really impacts them as much as it would if you were scrapping around for Champions League places, or you were scrapping for your life in the Premier League. I just don't think it's going to make as much of an impact on them. But maybe I'm wrong. It all depends on where they actually are. If they go where we've predicted them to go, I don't think it makes jack shit's worth of difference. But if they're in a bit of trouble, either Palace or Tottenham or one of the sides are fighting for Europe, then I think then it's a problem.
Do you not think, though, if Spurs didn't have the Champions League to deal with and they solely had the domestics and the league, they would push higher than 9th or 10th?
No, because I think they'll get knocked out in the Champions League group stage anyway, so I don't think it'll be a problem in Christmas, if I'm brutally honest. And at the start of the season, I don't think it makes as much of an impact. Minimally, but I think we're talking 3-6 points, and realistically, you add 3-6 points on Tottenham in 10th, they're going to move from 10th to 9th. I don't think they're going to be moving much beyond those positions. In 9th place, you'll probably be quite surprised by this, Lyle. Obviously, me and I don't know each other's predictions. Well, we both knew Burnley were 20th, but that was just inevitable anyway. No offence, Burnley fans. In 9th position for me is Aston Villa.
Okay.
I think they will drop off this year. I do think that 9th to 5th is going to be mightily close, very similar to how close it was for those Champions League positions this season. I don't know. Watkins is he's not old, obviously, but it's another year in the tank. Will he, he's linked to United, he's linked to other clubs. Will he stay? Will he go? Whatever. They've got great players. Emi Martinez, another one who's another year older. Consters and people like that. They've got some injury problems. I don't know. I'm probably being a little bit harsh on Aston Villa, but they haven't done anything in the window that excites me. It seems like they've more just kept everybody at the moment. I mean, if they lose like a Morgan Rogers and a Watkins, they're in big trouble. Not big trouble in regards to relegation, but I do think they'll drop off. It wouldn't surprise me if they finish 5th. They probably will, but I've got Villa in 9th. 8th
place, Manchester United. I had to seriously.
As he put them so high, look. As he put them so high. Nearly relegated, and he got them in 8th. I would never put them in 8th.
Remind me where you put United?
8th.
Where?
8th position. I think Man United will finish in 8th.
You've put United in 8th as well?
Yeah, I've put United in 8th. So I wish I wouldn't have put them 8th now. I wish I'd put Villa. Hang on, I'm changing my prediction. Villa are in United are 9th, Villa are 8th.
Okay. Right, where do we start? It absolutely shocking last season. And
I
it
thought
can't
it was
get.
fantastic. I really enjoyed watching Man United. It's probably one of the seasons that I've
Thank
really
you.
enjoyed
Thank
watching Man
you.
United. I'd look forward to watching the games.
Thank
Every
you.
game.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate it.
Entertainment.
I'm glad we made
Not a problem.
other fans of teams smile, because there certainly wasn't a lot for us lot to smile at last season. I think it doesn't take a genius to work out that it's a make or break for Amorim. He's not going into the season, as he even said himself, he's lost his credibility. Although they weren't his players, as he often reminded us every game. But it's just not good enough. It wasn't good enough, and me and Cam went through it at the before we started the podcast, and their run till the start of November is very, very difficult, and that it all depends on how long they give him, or it could be another manager coming through the door at Manchester United. I could see us finishing a little bit higher, or I could see us absolutely tanking it and having a terrible season again. They're such a difficult team to place.
Yeah, it does. It does feel a bit like a Eric Ten Hag kind of thing again, where should you have sacked him at the end of last season? You haven't. You've committed to him. You've given him the start of the season. But if it doesn't start off well, I mean, the start for United is crucial. It's crucial. And I'm not even necessarily talking about points, but I'm just talking about performances. They've got to be better. I mean, we talk about results last year, but your performances were shocking. I mean, I never forget the Southampton game at Old Trafford. I was watching it in the pub. And don't get me wrong, you won the game in the end, but you were shocking. You made one of the worst Premier League teams in history, statistically, look fantastic in your own patch for 70-odd minutes. I mean, the performances were awful. So I think there's got to be an improvement in performances. Obviously, there's got to be an improvement in results and position. That goes without saying. I think that both of those things are inevitable.
Yeah.
Whether or not the improvement is significant enough for Man United fans, for the board, etc., I don't know. But you've got to have a better season. I don't know what my 8th is. My 8th is kind of Amorim stays the whole season, you finish 8th. Amorim gets sacked in November and you finish 8th. I think you're finishing 8th.
Yeah, I think it
like
could be.
You said,
It
hard
could be.
to place United this year. It really, really is.
I think we're in that mid-table bubble. You know, that's, you know, regardless of what happens, regardless of how we play, we'll beat some teams. We'll turn up and we might beat a bloody Liverpool, and then the next week we'll lose to a Sunderland. It could be another one of those seasons where you don't know what team is going to turn up, and sometimes when they can be bothered to turn up, because it certainly didn't seem like that in the final of the Europa League. I'm sorry, it just didn't.
Up to 7th now, only 7 teams left. Some teams you've said, I haven't said, and vice versa. Who have you got 7th, Lyle?
I've gone with Aston Villa in 7th. For me, they've kept all of the players, and like you said, there's still question marks around a Watkins, or if any other players are going to be exiting, but they haven't entered the market. They haven't done anything. Don't get me wrong, they've got an absolutely fantastic group of players and a fantastic manager, but they're not doing enough to fill me with enough confidence to break into that sort of top 4, top 5, because the top 4 of the top 5 or top 4 certainly are just improving. And do you think there is some sort of a little gap starting to form there where you can actually pick out the top 4 and then it starts to become a bit of a mess? Or do you think it still is a bit of a mess and anybody can get Champions League?
I think based on what we have to go off, form, last season, transfers, squad, feeling around the club, the way the fans feel, yes, it feels like there's a top 4 that is pretty solid. But look at last year. Who on earth would have said Forest would have been where they were? I mean, Villa nearly got 4th in the end. Newcastle, you know, I'm not saying Newcastle people didn't expect to do well, but you know, you had Bournemouth up there at times. Yes, in theory. But in theory, Nottingham Forest were favourites, one of the favourites for relegation outside of the promoted sides last year, and they ended up nearly getting Champions League.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. But yes and no. In other words, I'm sitting on the fence. My 7th is the team I literally just spoke about, Nottingham Forest. I think I actually had them in one of my earlier predictions a couple of weeks ago that I've tweaked. I had them 13th. I really thought they were going to drop off big time. But re-signed Morgan Gibbs. Well, I say re-signed. They've extended his contract. I think that's going to be very, very good. They have lost a couple of players, but they haven't lost loads. I think defensively they were really strong last year, and they've kept the main core of that. Obviously, Chris Wood needs another good season. They're making some decent signings. I think they'll be all right. I think they've solidified that setup there. It wouldn't surprise me if they do have a bit more of a drop off, but I'm going for them solid. I was looking at the teams below them, and I thought, yeah, I think they'll finish above them. Maybe that Aston Villa's the one that I would say I was a little bit less confident about, but beyond that, I can't see him finishing below United and Tottenham and Everton and Palaces of the world. And that means by default they get a very decent 7th position, which I think they'll be happy about, and that'll be European football for a second year in a row.
And that was exactly my thinking when I put Forest 6th, because I just can't see them doing as well. But I was exactly the same as you when the first time I really thought about the predictions. I thought, blimey, I was looking at a 10th or 11th, but I just can't see it. They haven't been purged as badly as I thought they were going to be, with their players obviously losing Elanga to Newcastle, but signing a few players as well, which I forget. But Forest have always been they're not going to sign your absolutely massive names. They're going to work on something, drip feed them into the squad, because let's not forget they've got such a good and solid defence, and that's where you build your play out of. If you haven't got a solid defence and a solid midfield, you're not really going to be troubling anyone. And they're such a well-drilled, with Nuno, brilliant manager. They're a very well-drilled side, and I think they will have a steady season. Slightly worse than last season, but steady nonetheless.
Yeah, no, I echo most of that. For me, Newcastle are 6th. I think they've had a bad window so far. I don't think it's been as cataclysmically bad as some people have dramatised. I'm quite surprised I actually said that without stuttering. But from one drama queen to another, I do think Newcastle, they're not in trouble, but I don't think they're in as good a position. And even though I've got them 6th, I think the gap between 6th, well, we might get 5 Champions League places, but I think the gap between them and the top 4, I think, will be quite big. I love Eddie Howe. I think he's a fantastic manager. There does come a point where you question, is the Eddie Howe-Newcastle relationship gone as far as it can go? That's no disrespect to Eddie Howe or Newcastle, but does it need a new mindset of some sort? I don't know. That seems incredibly harsh, because I think Newcastle are doing well. I think it's an interesting thing. I think if they lose Isak, they are...
Yeah, 100%.
They talk about Sesko coming in and other... of course, they'll replace Isak if he goes, but there's no guarantee that a striker's going to come in and just bag them goals. It's not necessarily going to happen. Spurs have just literally completed the loan signing of João Paulinho from Bayern Munich, which I do think is a very good signing for Spurs, to be fair.
Yes.
But yeah, for me, Newcastle 6th, decent season, nothing really to write home about. Maybe they'll then look to go again next year.
Well, that was a similar thinking to me as to why Newcastle are 5th, because they haven't impressed me with their window. They're obviously in a tug of war with Man United over the signing of Sesko, whichever team he chooses to go to. And if Sesko does go to Newcastle, that would see Isak go into Liverpool, and I think that would be... It's a difficult one, because I've put them 5th, but how detrimental and how much of an impact would that be as to losing your number 9, who supplied you with that many goals last season, and somebody who you've worked on and nurtured for many, many, many years, and he knows where the net is, and getting somebody else in from a different league, it does put so much pressure on. Like Erasmus Højlund came in with so much pressure on his shoulders, and just sort of fumbled it. Started off quite strong, and that could be... I know that's not 100%, because there are goals that can come from different avenues in your team. But if your number 9 isn't firing, you're not going to be in that sort of Champions League shout. At least I don't think, because that is one of the most pivotal positions on the pitch. Is getting your 20 goals from your Isak or something. So that's a difficult one for me. They could be 5th or they could be lower. Time will tell.
Yeah, I think Isak's inevitably going to score a hat-trick against them if he moves to Liverpool. I think, again, though, a bit like Nottingham Forest, I look at the teams below and I can't really see too many teams that I'd be confident, even if they do lose Isak, that they'd finish below. Again, it feels like they're kind of by default 6th, and that brings me into my 5th, which is probably, in my opinion, the most controversial, along with the Sunderland at 13th. But again, I'm looking at it, I'm looking at what they did last season, I'm looking at the signings, the history of the way this club reinvent themselves almost on a season-by-season basis. And for me this year, Newcastle don't look as strong as last year, Forest don't look as strong, United and Tottenham, we don't know about them, Villa don't look as strong. The team that doesn't look any weaker, wait to see whether they look stronger. Second season for the manager as well. I've got Brighton 5th, which seems crazily high, but again, I just can't see the teams that I put below them. 8 out of 10 times, I think Brighton finish above them. So Brighton in 5th, which could remarkably get football, Champions League football at the Amex.
Wow.
This time next year. So I've got Brighton 5th. I like the setup at Brighton. I would do, because Chelsea is basically, we just basically nick all the Brighton's great players. So if they finish 5th, that will be good for us, because we'll probably steal another load of their players. We just need to stick away from the managers for a couple of years. No, I think Brighton will have a good season. I think they'll be the surprise package of this year. That's my hunch again. Like I said, I've had hunches that are Dolly related. I've had hunches that are correct. I think this one is I'm not sure about it, but I feel it. Brighton 5th for me, which I think is quite a bold prediction. I'm sure you disagree with that, Lar. You had them, what, 9th or 10th?
It's a difficult one, because I disagree to a certain extent, because I looked at it similarly to you when I looked down the league, and I could see a handful of teams that I could envision finishing higher than them.
Right. Yeah. No, I get that. And that's probably where I think a lot of people would listen to what I just said there and think, well, hang on a minute, Cameron, I think Newcastle have got a better squad than them. I think Forest have got a better squad than them. United, Villa, so I get that argument. It is bold. Don't
get me wrong, though, it's not totally out there. They're a team that could very easily fly under the radar. And,
well, don't give me too much credit, Lyle, because if I get this right, I want people to go, well, who would have ever said it? And you've just gone, well, you never know. Why are you being fun smoking, you stupid? No chance Brighton are going to finish 5th. Jesus Christ. That's what I like to hear. So that is confirmed then. Brighton are going to finish 5th this year.
That's just confirmed it.
Are we now in the top 4?
We are in the top 4.
And we've got the same order. So,
we've got the same teams.
Sorry, not necessarily the same order. I don't know what order you've gone for. That's what I did actually. That wasn't a Freudian slip. That was a genuine slip. Who have you got 4th? Let's say them at the same time. Let's count them down.
Okay.
Right? 3, 2, 1. Man City.
Chelsea.
You didn't say anything.
I said Chelsea, and I heard what you said.
Okay, I didn't hear what you said. So you've got you've got Chelsea in 4th, the champions of the world, the best team in the world. Lyle, please explain how you've got them in 4th.
Because
I'm joking, by the way. I did.
Look, I think the top 4, for me at least, people are going to see it differently. Of course, I think the top 4, whatever position you put them in, the top 4 writes itself. There are 4 teams that, whether in the transfer window or over subsequent seasons beforehand, they've written themselves into the top 4. And Chelsea did it by the skin of their knackers last season, and I think they'll get 4th again.
Never in doubt, Lyle. What are you talking about? Never in doubt.
I think they'll get 4th again. They've made some very good signings. I looked at Gittins for a hell of a lot of years, and I'd always wanted United to sign him, but we decided to sign Anthony.
You didn't look at him too many years, Lyle. He's only young. A bit weird if you're looking at him when he's 13. Fucking hell.
What was it? João Pedro? What we're saying on João Pedro, because João Pedro is he's a very dividing player. You go online and people have dividing opinions about him. I think he's just he's a wait and see type of player.
He's not. I've changed my mind on him. When we signed him, I thought, I'm not sure about it. The way he played in the Club World Cup was incredible. And I know you can't really overlook a couple of games, but overplay a couple of games. But I am going to do exactly that. I think the way he plays as a footballer, it just suits the way we play under Maresca crazily well. Be it tactically, be it visually. And I think visually is sometimes the most important. Does it look like it? And it looks like it. And then you've got Delap behind him providing support. But
Go on then, Man City in fourth.
Man City in fourth, which is interesting. I have rotated second, third and fourth consistently. I've had City second, I've had City third, I've had them fourth. Well, obviously, I just said I've rotated them all. Why have I gone for them fourth? It's just we had to do the video at some point, and they just happened to be fourth at the point when we're recording this. I don't know. I think it's very, very difficult. I really can see 2, 3, 4 being any order. I wanted to put Chelsea above one of two of those teams because I'm biased. And I do think we will finish in the top 3 this year. I don't think we'll finish fourth. And for me, I look at Arsenal and I look at Man City, and I think Arsenal finish above them. I don't think it's a bad season for Man City, but I think the Pep era is slowly coming towards an end and a climax. And like any climaxes, there is some regret sometimes. And I think City will struggle when Pep goes. I don't understand why I went down that route, really. But at the moment, they haven't climaxed yet. They're still mid session. But I think they've edged for too long. Do you know what I mean? I think they'll still say top 4 this year, but I think they'll be fourth. That was the most inappropriate way of describing Man City's position in the Premier League.
I've gone with Arsenal third.
Love it.
Okay. And the only reason why Arsenal are there is they've improved massively. They've actually got a centre forward now, which is mental. But I've been doing this thing the whole time. You've said it a few times. It's not if I look down the league, who do I think's gonna who could finish ahead of them? With Arsenal, it's I look at Liverpool and I look at Manchester City, and I can't see Arsenal winning it. I could see Liverpool winning it. I could see Manchester City winning it, but I just can't see it with Arsenal. They're going into the same trend again of where they were always steady eddies in the Champions League, but when push comes to shove, it's always just that one step too far to really crack on and be that consistent side that are going to grind out your 1-0s and grab the league like Liverpool did in the end so effortlessly. So that's my reasoning for Arsenal. Don't get me wrong, it's pissed me off that Gyökeres has gone there because I thought Amorim might have had some sort of sway, but at the end of the day, he doesn't want to play shit-ass football. He wants to play Champions League football. So you can't blame the man.
No, and I've got Arsenal second, obviously, as we can see how these predictions are going along. I've touched on Chelsea. I think we'll be better than we were last season. I think we'll finish the top 3. I think it's exciting for us, but I think we've got to temper expectations. I'd like to be in and around the title race sort of Christmas time. I think we'll probably fade off in the second part of the season. Obviously, we've got Champions League to deal with this year as well. But as for Arsenal, I've got them second. I agree with most of what you say. I think it's a big year for Arteta. They've invested in him this year, really have invested in exactly what he wants in the areas he wants. Now, whether or not you think that the players they picked for those positions are great is up to you. And that's subjective. And truth be told, we won't know until the end of the season or even further on than that. I mean, Cucurella was terrible in his first season for Chelsea. He's now one of our best players, so you can't really judge too quickly. But for me, they're a stronger squad this year than they were last year, and I think that was one of their big issues. I think a lot of it with Arsenal is mentality, and a lot of it is Arteta. There is this 100%. Thing now, can he win anything? And I think if he doesn't win the league this year, which is harsh because Liverpool look very, very strong, maybe you've got Man City finishing first. I don't know who you've got finishing first, but I think it's a big season, and I think if they don't win the league this year and they do finish third like you've got them, or even in second but a way off from whoever wins the league, maybe is it time to change the regime? I don't know. Maybe that's.
I was going to say that.
To sack the manager.
Do you think that they would have that that type of they want that type of direction, or are they quite happy just sort of if they are still getting their seconds and thirds and what have you, and sort of looking like they're pushing for a title but always falling short? Are they happy with it's a process, or do you think they will look elsewhere?
The fans aren't happy. The fans now want to win, and I think that's one thing the Arsenal fans, maybe you can criticise in the past. I think they're changing now. They want to win, and I think that's why it's a big season for Arteta. And I think if he does fall short again this year, I think that there will be the rhetoric around Arteta, which a lot of it comes from other clubs and other fans at the moment. I think it's going to start coming internally with fans. And at the end of the day, I think when Arsenal fans start saying, let's see who's available on the market next summer, managerial-wise and stuff. Every club talks to managers, whether they like to admit it or not. It's an interesting season for Arsenal. They've got a good squad. They've got a great team. They've got some fantastic players. I don't think Mikel Arteta is a bad manager. It's just whether or not he's an elite manager. And I guess this is another year where he gets the opportunity to prove that. But he's got to win something this year, even if it is a couple of cup competitions. He's got to go deep in the Champions League again. They've got to win the league soon, haven't they? Because like we were talking about earlier with other clubs and other situations, you can be in this position and very quickly just drop off, and before you know it, Arsenal will be so far away. It feels like they've got so close. They should have won a Premier League title in the past few years, and they haven't.
So second for me, I've gone with Manchester City. I think it was very amusing for me seeing what happened last season and their sort of drop off because of how badly Manchester United were doing. But I think they'll push back up into that, into the title shout, if you will. The only thing that sort of not grinds me, because I don't really care for Manchester City, but is they don't have that focal point anymore of a David Silva or a Kevin De Bruyne when he was absolutely firing and could pick a pass out from absolutely anywhere. And Erling Haaland dropped off. They've made two good additions of the young Shirky and Ait Nouri, which I think Ait Nouri suits their style absolutely fantastically. I don't know whether I've already said that, but I just think they'll fall a little bit short this season. I don't honestly know if they'll even be a proper title race this season. I think Liverpool are just unfortunately, they're just that step ahead at the moment, and someone's got to finish second, and however many points it is, I don't know, but Manchester City will be there or thereabouts.
Yeah, and that does bring us very nicely on to who we both unsurprisingly predicted for the Premier League title this year. I don't think it will be that close. I think it'll be a little bit closer than last year. You've got to go Liverpool, I mean, they were great last year. Slot done an incredible job. How he came in so seamlessly has made any manager that calls for a transition season look rather silly, because he came in and just, I think a lot of that was the way the Klopp left the club, don't get me wrong, and that's a compliment to Klopp, but yeah, different style, and they just absolutely nailed it. They were never really in doubt from quite sort of early on in the season. I think they've improved in every area. If they get Isak in, it just makes it even more improvement. I think obviously all the trauma and the horrificness that went on with Jota and his brother passing, Diego and was it Antonio? Is that his name? I think it's just awful. And many people people say that you shouldn't use this in a prediction video, but it's real life, and life is more important than football. And I think I honestly think it could go one or two ways, but I think it will. Liverpool are a club that have always been able to deal with tragedy and come together very well, and I think it's a very tight-knit club, and I think it will benefit's the wrong word, but I think they will use it to encourage them and inspire them this year. And I'm not a massive Liverpool fan, obviously, but if they did win the league this year, I'd struggle to feel upset about it, if I'm honest. So yeah, I think they've got the best squad. I think they've got one of the best managers in the league. They've got the best player in the league. They've got the best defender in the league. They've got, one of the best goalkeepers in the league. I think the big thing for Liverpool next season is Champions League and how far they can go in that. I think they disappointed this year with that, and I think next year they need to go far with that. I'd be looking at semi-final, final minimum.
I think they've
probably got one of now the best squads in the world, other than PSG. And I wouldn't necessarily say that their best 11 is, you would probably not be able to call it. Chelsea turned PSG apart, but that's just what we do. I would be surprised if many people predicted against Liverpool this year, which is ironic because barely anyone predicted them last year. So maybe we'll be wrong again. But for me, Liverpool, they've got to win the league, surely. They've
100%.
improved.
And I think
they were so far ahead last year.
Yeah, they are the type of team as well to go on leaps and bounds, and they're not just, like you say, they're not just going to be looking at the Premier League if they had it their way, and they will to a certain extent, because like you said, they're one of the best squads in the world now. They'd want to do the treble, they'd want to do the lot, and they have the team, they have the players, they have the coach to do that. So it's going to be very interesting, and I'll be probably looking at it and watching it from behind the sofa as to see what they can and how many they can win next season.
Yeah, I think it will be a very, very interesting season. But that does, ironically, bring us to the end to our predictions. Who'd have thought it? We predicted first. We're not going to predict who we think finishes. Well, there's nothing else to predict. But I think we should do the manager thing. We've got some other videos coming out, some shorts, so please do subscribe or follow or wherever on earth you're listening to this or watching it. We've got lots coming. I am looking forward to the season as well, Lyle. I think it's going to be an interesting season. There's a lot of unknowns this season. I mean, you could probably make that argument most seasons.
Yeah.
I just hope we get a decent relegation battle and a bit of a title fight this year, because I think that's what we lacked last year. It was a very unpredictable season, but the league was wrapped up and the relegation was wrapped up quite early on in the season.
If you guys have any other videos that you would like to see us do, any ideas you got, drop them in the comments, and we will look over absolutely everything.
Absolutely. And if you did get to this point and you're still listening to both of us, then I feel very, very sorry for you, but I do appreciate it nonetheless. Do leave, like Lyle said, your predictions he said earlier down in the comments. We'd love to read them. And tell us exactly where you think we're wrong, and then in a year's time, if we're still doing this, we'll react to them. Or maybe not a year's time, we'll maybe do it about when the season ends in about 10 months, but it will be interesting to see. But yeah, let's see what happens this season. Let's see what goes on, and yeah, if you want to join us for the ride and you want to continue to listen to us rabbit along, then subscribe as well. Lyle, I'll let you fucking end the video.
So
do it quickly though, because I'm desperate for a pee.
So am I. Thanks very much for watching, listening, and sharing your thoughts if you have. Thanks for watching or listening, and we'll see you in the next one.